Good afternoon. Thanks to a ruling in 2003 in an appellate court in Florida, the media is no longer obligated to tell us the truth. In fact, it is perfectly legal for them to lie to us. Bearing this in mind, I decided to take a little bit of time to help you Americans understand where you may have been misinformed, especially in regards to the unfortunate events taking place in Eurasia these days. I'm speaking particularly about what's happening in Georgia, Ossetia, Russia, Abkhazia, Ukraine, Poland, and even Iran and Iraq. What is going on? I've asked some of my American friends, and most of them don't have a clue. That is because the American media started with the story in the middle, thus giving a distorted picture by telling you events out of context. Out of context, things don't make sense and meanings can be twisted to mean other things than what is really true. The story the Americans get is that all of a sudden the president of Georgia, Saakashvili, is calling America saying, "Help, help, Russia's attacking, Russia's invading us. It's terrible, it's so bad." And when we went there and looked, sure enough, Russia was invading them. However, when one does a little more in-depth research, you learn a few more things. You learn that this was the middle of the story, that there was some things that led up to it. Things don't just happen in a vacuum. Things don't just happen totally spontaneously most of the time. What happened is there's this little country or area called Ossetia, and over the past 10 to 20 years, as the Soviet Union spun them off, they have taken several referendums. At first they were part of Georgia, and then the referendums, they decided they did not want to be part of Georgia. And even though the results were very conclusive, with good voter turnout and a very definite result, the international community has refused to pay attention or recognize that. Georgia took this as being almost like a civil war type thing, so they were getting very upset and aggressive about it. Till recently, when they decided, well, we should show them who's boss. And so at first they turned the water off. Now, in a lot of countries, you can just go and drink wine or go and drink bottled drinks, and so drinking isn't the problem. But however, doing your laundry might be a problem. Putting out fires might be a problem. Sewer systems might be a problem if the water is cut off. So this, of course, made Ossetia a bit uncomfortable and more upset with the situation. And then Georgia decides to invade Ossetia, going to their main city of Chinkhavili or something like that, and bombing buildings, killing people, destroying things, and that's when it really started up. To that point, American media hadn't even heard of any of this, and it's been pretty much silenced. We don't get to see a lot of that. It's been very carefully censored out of our news. I saw some parts where Russians were saying that they were called on by the Ossetians to help. And basically that's what they did, is they came in and then they decided to push the Georgians out of Ossetia, and then they pushed a little bit further and a little bit further. Now, people have said, well, maybe Russia, their response was a bit disproportionate to the problem. Disproportionate. Well, if you're going to mobilize an army and you're going to start putting down an uprising or whatever that happened to have been over there, Russia means business. and so they're going to be fighting pretty darn serious. So I'm not surprised at the response, even if it was a little bit heavy-handed. So another thing that I had seen is where some of the Ossetians had fled to Russia, and some of them were even visiting from America. And when they got back to America, they explained that it was the Russians who got them out of the hot area, and then they came back to America and said it wasn't the Russians who started it all, it was the Georgians. The question is, why did the Georgians do this? Thinking that, well, Russia's going to come and do something. It's probably because America, Israel, and England have a presence in Georgia, and probably gave that president and their leadership the false impression that America was going to help them out no matter what, under any circumstances. And it didn't work out that way. And it's not just about the Ossetians versus the Georgians. There's a complicating factor. There's oil involved. There's oil pipelines going through Georgia. So right away, you know why America has to be in the middle of it. The other thing is that Georgia is on the border of Iran, and the American leadership has been talking pretty tough about Iran. So I could see that there's another reason they want to be there. And another thing that is aggravating probably to Russia and very provocative is America selling defense systems to Poland, trying to sell them to the Ukraine and Georgia too. And so Russia is feeling hemmed in by these defense systems. And Poland has already signed with it. Right now at this point, I think it's time that I have some advice for both countries, for America and for Russia. For Russia, I'll say, Russia, cool off a little bit. Take a breather. Just think. This war is very nasty business. Just think and see if you can get some talks going to get a better understanding of things. America, you need to back off. You need to stand down and wait a minute and think about your positions there. What business do we have in Eurasia and putting those systems there? I think that it's an overreach and an overreaction to a situation you're trying to make the people fearful of. It's probably just their way of making money. These systems are not cheap, and so that way they get an income from them, no matter what or who they're pointed at. But I can see the point that it's provocative of Russia. So America, I don't know if you remember that commercial where the people are in the car and they are teasing a Bigfoot, a Sasquatch, with beef jerky, and they're waving it in his face and then pulling away a little bit and saying, come on, and waving it in his face and saying, come on. Eventually, the creature loses its patience and just reaches into the vehicle, tears the person out of it, and of course, the rest is left to the imagination. Russia is, in a way, they have limited patience, and they're seeing this as an encroachment. Just as we were not happy when Russia was trying to place missiles, a defense system, in Cuba. So, with that being said, I'm about to move on to my dramatization that kind of tries to put the shoe on the other foot and see how it feels. Onward.